It's such an honor to be here because I remember a time when looking at something like this and speaking in a place like this was just a dream. Like Biggie said, it was all a dream, right? When I was going through the struggle, I could not imagine that God would turn this thing around and give me a second chance, another opportunity in life. Now, I want to start this one out today with a quote, since we're talking about setting yourself on fire, right? Fire. Everybody say it. Fire.
Fire.
One more time. Fire.
Fire.
All right. Now, in 1873, Walter Pater said, the aim of life is to burn always with a hard, gem-like flame and to fill every moment with passionate experience. Anybody ready for that?
Yes.
When I say fire, I mean passion. Now, the question is today, how on fire are you for life?
Very.
Amen. But here's the question, though. Where in your life do you need to set it on fire? Like, where is not on fire? We all have one place, right? We always have one thing that we have to overcome. Whether it's in the relationships, the finances, the calling, the relationship with God, whatever it is, there's always one thing. What is your thing that you need to set on fire? On a scale from 1 to 10, write this down. What is my passion level for my partner? Where you at right now? Come on. Now I'm going to read you a quote that God put in me. It says, a fire ignited from pursuing one's passion always burns the chains and destroys the illusions of limitations. The inner flame is the mother of all genius. Passion is the soul's wings that allows the individual to transcend mediocrity and soar to the skies of greatness. It paves the way for one set ablaze to accomplish things seen as impossible to the common person. You can't do great things lukewarm. Right? And contrary to the status quo's thinking, you cannot think your way to the top. You must burn your way there. You must burn your way there. Burn is always in demand. Listen to me. Burn is always in demand. If you're a realtor, be on fire for real estate, right? If it's a resort, be on fire for catering to people, right? Creating experiences for people. Whatever you do, set it on fire. No more lukewarm living. Say this after me. Burn, baby, burn.
Burn, baby, burn.
That's 2022. Burn, baby, burn. That's what we're going to do. Now, my passion, my call and my gifting is motivational art. This room is a canvas and I'm about to paint it up. Okay? Come on. Come on. Come on. I want to read. I'm going to start it out because I'm really, really passionate about writing. And I'm working on this new book called Burning, right? So I'm going to read this poem that I wrote. It's called Make Way for the Young. Okay? And I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about your thinking. We got to unlearn all that we have learned in order to become all that we can be. Somebody needs to hear that. How much do you need to unlearn about your life? Come on, write that down. How much do I need to unlearn? We went to school back in the day to learn. We should have went to school to unlearn. Come on. They got it backwards, right? All right, here's the poem. The small boxes they use to put us in. The petty labels they use to define us, the ignorant ways they attempt to frame us, how much should the small, petty, and ignorant really bother us, right? We need not ask for permission to be that which we are. We need not seek approval to dream the dream we've been given. We need not beg for validation to breathe the air that excites us. And besides, would getting their permission, their approval, and their validation give us the high that we so desperately seek? Come on now. I've never seen fire asking for permission to burn. I've never heard the sun seeking the sky's approval to rise. I've never known love to beg for validation to fall. And what if, just like fire, we just burn? And what if, like the sun, we just rose? And what if, like love, we just fell without any concern over the small minds that might reject us? So we got to question, right? We got to question ourselves. What if we got it all wrong? What if instead we sought to be misunderstood? What if we aggressively sought rejection? What if we intentionally sought the disapproval of those who have never achieved anything? How much better would this world be? How much more alive would this planet be? How much better off would mankind be if we danced to the music inside of us instead of the harmony of their contempt? What if it wasn't water and oxygen that made life possible, but rather the boldness to shun conformity? Somebody say amen. Amen. What if the reason, look here, what if the reason the moon seems so lifeless is that its ancestors succumbed to the fear of public ridicule? Let us not become the moon, right? What if instead of saying we are thirsty for change, we started drinking from the cup that actually produced it? Make way for the young. Make way for the young. Come on, baby. Burn, baby, burn. Somebody feel me?
Yes.
Come on.
Fresh poem right there?
Right there. Yes, sir. Come on. God is good. God is good. God is good.
Yeah, you can sit later. We need more coffee.
God is good.
Can you send it to all of us?
Yes, I'll do that. I'll put it in the group for y'all. Now, let me give you a little background about me. For some of y'all know me and have heard my story, and some of you haven't, so I want to start from the beginning. Okay, for 17 years, I was in the music business. I was a rap artist, music producer, songwriter, produced for Gold and Platinum acts all throughout the country, big names, had my own radio show, was on Billboard myself as an artist, and I chased what the world called that Hollywood lifestyle, right? The fast cars, the fast women, the big homes, that quick, make it rain money. Maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about. See, the truth was, looking back, I had this big, gigantic emotional hole on the inside of me, and I was trying to fill it with the world, because that's what the world tells us to do. If you get money, if you get fame, you get notoriety, they will respect you, you'll have a voice, and they'll listen, right? It's all a lie. Peace doesn't come from external things, right? There's only one place we can get that. Relationship, right? So, but I'm gonna tell you, I tried everything. I went 120 beast mode, all in, nothing less, on the world. So I can assure you that the answers you're seeking here today, because we're all seeking answers, I can assure you they're not out there. They're in here. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, right? Now, God had not given up on me. Because I was out there in the world. I was in my gifting, but not in my calling. There's a difference, right? There's a difference between being in your gifting and being in your calling. As in real estate, location, 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 right? I was out of position. See, I was behind the mic, and I was writing, and I was teaching, and I was articulating and all of that, but I had the wrong message. I mean, when I say I was doing a complete 180 of what I'm doing today, I mean it. One of my number one songs was Pop a Pill Now. I was spreading, I didn't even do drugs, but I was so the heck promoting it. The enemy was using me, because see, the enemy knows your gift just like God does. And the war is over that gift and who's going to be able to use it, right? Dark or good, good or dark, light or dark. Which one is going to get your gifting, right? At this point in time, I didn't have the guidance, I didn't have the awareness, I didn't have the knowledge of who I really was. But God intervened. Somebody was praying for me. I don't know who, probably my mother, prayer warrior. So she was probably praying for me somewhere. But what turned my life around and got me on this trajectory was my father passed away in 2007, right in front of me. Now, I'm gonna be honest, the way that God brought me to my calling and my gifting in this new arena was not the way I would have chose, because none of us want to go through the struggle, right? I'm a product of the struggle. We don't want to go through the struggle, but let me be honest with you. I wouldn't be here today had I not went through the fire. The more we go through the fire, the more refined we become, right? Some of that trials and tribulations that you're going through, that's just the molding and shaping and pruning and preparing you for the next season. And what I didn't understand at the time, the things I was going through, because I would question God, I would say, why me? Why me? Why are you putting me through this? And I didn't realize the struggle that I was going through wasn't even about me. It was about my future calling and what I was going to do when I come in this room, right? I can't talk to people in the struggle, going through trials and tribulations, if I haven't been there. If I hadn't lost myself, how can I come in here and tell y'all how to find yourself, right? So the first thing I had to do was lose the old me. I had to kill off that old version, and God made sure that happened. See, my dad, I went in on a Sunday. My dad had a stroke 12 days before. So I go into a nursing home, a rehabilitation center, on December 30th, 2007. And it's a beautiful day. And I'm thinking, okay, because my dad had been getting better since the stroke. He was progressing. He got out of ICU, got to a regular room, then he went to a rehabilitation place, and they're like, okay, we're going to help him get his arm and leg back to get that motion and movement back that he lost from the stroke, and we're going to get him out of here. The doctors were all excited and, hopeful. And my dad was 63 at this time, but he looked 53. Never really been sick or anything like that, so they just said, hey, he's going to probably make it. So I go in there on a Sunday, man, and I get blindsided. You ever been blindsided in life? Yeah. I mean, completely like hit with a brick, like boom. Life's trying to find out what you're made of. Well, I did, because I went in and the doctor came to me and he said, listen, Billy, we got to get your dad up out of the bed. He's been in bed 12 days. For him to get back up and moving in the way we need it, we got to get him out of that bed, get him in a wheelchair, and roll him outside. Let him get some sunlight. Let's get him up and moving. So me and the nurse said, yes, sir, we'll do that. We helped my daddy up out of the bed and into a wheelchair. But what we did not know, and nobody knew, was my dad had a blood clot in his leg from the stroke. And when we moved him, we shifted that blood pressure. It dislodged that blood clot, went straight to his lungs, and 10 minutes later, he was dead. He transpired and went to the other world. And I saw it all. I saw him struggle. He was conscious the whole time, and it was horrific. You talk about the most horrific thing is seeing your loved one, the one that raised you for 33 years at the time, to raise me my whole life and always took care of me, and here he is sitting there struggling to breathe, and there ain't nothing we could do. There's nothing the doctors could do for this kind of situation. When a blood clot goes, that's just what it is. So I watched him die right in front of me. And what really, really bothered me the most was when I was 8 years old. I remember I was leaving a Cub Scout meeting. And I had taken, it was in the wintertime, and I guess I had like a little cold or something. I had taken one of those little halls my dad gave me. And I had swallowed it, went down my windpipe, and it got stuck, and I couldn't breathe. And I was in the car with my dad, and it was at nighttime, and I started like waving because I couldn't even, say anything because I was being choked. My daddy grabbed me from the back and put me over the front seat and hit me on the back several times until that thing dislodged, right? Now here it was, my daddy was in that same situation and couldn't breathe, and I couldn't do nothing. But God is good. God never said that he would explain it all to us. He just said he would take what the devil meant for harm and make it good. And he will honor that in your life too. Now what happened? Let me show you how he moved me from my old mindset to what I'm doing now. Now, my ministry, my motivational career jumped off and started in, of all places, a funeral home. I learned everything I needed to know about life in that funeral home, which was crazy, right? Let me tell you what happened. I went to the funeral home 2 days later after my daddy died, and the funeral director says, do you know where we're going to bury your daddy? And I said, no, sir. And he said, well, your grandmother's bought 4 burial plots. She was still alive. She was with me there. And we're going to bury him at one of those plots. And let me take you out there and show you where we're going to lay him, right? So we go out to the grave site. And when we get out there, I never will forget it, the man said, the one spot, he said, here's where your granddaddy lies. Here's where your grandmother goes when she transpires. Here's where we're going to bury your daddy. And then this last phrase rocked me forever. He said, and then on this one right here, here's where you going to lay. I said, what? Here's where you going to lay. Now, see, those words had a little different meaning and a little different power after what I had seen 2 days before. When he said, here's where you're going to lay, I knew what that really meant. See, for years in the rap life, the thug life, I had seen my homies die, probably buried 20 of them between drugs and that whole life ODing and gang banging and shooting and everything. But for some reason, I could compartmentalize that like, oh, man, that's not going to happen to me, right? In that world that I came from, there was 2 movies that kind of symbolized that lifestyle, Godfather and Scarface, right? And ours was Scarface, right? The first part of the movie, only the first part. And the first part of Scarface is like he comes from nothing. He rises up out of, poverty and all this and gets in the dope game and he gets to the top of the ladder. And right before intermission in the movie, you see this big banner upside on a blimp and it says, the world is yours. And the money's counting. They got a little money counter. It's ding, and he's like, yes. But in my life, we didn't play the end of that movie where he ended up getting shot and killed at the end. We just kept rewinding that first part. We were like, that's us. And that's the way it was, because I would get on the mic every single night and say this garbage and promote this chaos and destroy communities with my mouth. Never stopping to think really what I was saying. And the music, like we'd always say, oh, it's just music. No, it ain't. They living and dying by the words that we say. Let's not pretend. Death and life and the power of the tongue. Those that love it shall eat the fruits thereof. And we were sowing death. But this man just rocked my world. He said, here's where you gonna lay. We left that grave site and began to walk back in to the funeral home. And as I was walking, he's talking, right? He's trying to console us and talking, but all that's going on in my mind, I'm cycling that same line over and over. Here's where you gonna lay. Here's where you gonna lay. Here's where you gonna lay. And we get back in the office. The second part of that lesson, God was orchestrating. The first part was, look, there's an end to this on the physical. The physical world has an ending, right? That was the first part of the lesson. I get in the funeral home and the man says, now, Billy, I need you to do 2 things for me. And he slid these 2 pieces of paper across the table that changed my life. He said, on one piece of paper here, I need you to sum up your dad's life in 2 to 3 sentences. His whole life. Because it's going to go on the headstone. And on this piece of paper, I need you to write out the obituary that'll go in the newspaper. And I need 2 to 3 paragraphs about his whole life. Now, my mind is still at the side of that grave. Here's where you going to lay. Now, I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree, but I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, if he's saying this about my daddy, right? What do I want on the headstone? And what do I want on the obituary? One day somebody's going to be saying, what do you want on Billy's headstone? And here's the thing. I compartmentalized because my grandmother and my granddaddy both were in their 80s when they passed away. So my daddy kind of died 25 years early in my eyes. But I'd always assume I'm just going to live to 80, but that paradigm, that belief just got rocked to the core. You might not make it till 80, you understand? We don't know how long we have here. We got to make every single second burn and count. You understand that? Right? So I thought about if I died right now, what would they put in that obituary? What would they put on that headstone? And the truth is, I didn't like the answer. You ever just not like something about your life? You just like, I don't know how to change this, but something's got to change. But see, I was right where God needed me. I was at what we called rock bottom the other night. Everybody doesn't need to hit rock bottom to make a change, but I did. I needed that rock bottom. I don't think I would have came to this calling or gifting in any other way. God knew exactly what I needed to get me here to prepare me to speak. Because see, if you're going to go out and preach life to people, you got to understand death first and how important these things are. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to have that fire underneath the words you say. That power is not going to be there if you don't understand this. Now, the third part of the lesson, I was at the wake a couple days later, and they had my dad laid out. And the wake is where people come up and talk about the deceased, right? What happened to them and how my father had impacted or affected their life. Now, I'm sitting up with the family, and the people are coming up, and they begin to say all the stories and the ways my daddy impacted them. See, now, growing up, my dad was an alcoholic, full-blown alcoholic. So was his brothers, and so was his daddy. My grandfather, all my uncles, my dad, and all of them were just full-blown alcoholics. All different kinds of alcoholics. Like my granddaddy, if he had one drop of liquor in him, which was usually moonshine, we from Alabama, so it was moonshine back then, right? If he had one drop of moonshine in him, everybody within a mile was subject to getting beat on, women and children included. He was a good man, but if he got liquor in him, he turned into the monster. Now, my dad's uncles, his brothers, my uncles, his brothers, they were all alcoholics too, but they were what we call functional alcoholics, right? They could drink all night, get drunk, party and all that, but get up the next morning and still function, go to work. It hadn't affected their life all the way yet. My daddy had this different kind. If he had one drop, he could not stop. He would binge and binge and binge until he completely passed out. And then he'd wake up 4 or 5 hours later, still intoxicated, and continue to drink. And he would do this for 2 to 3 weeks and never stop. The only way my daddy stopped was we hid the money. Me and my mom would hide the money and hide the keys to the car, hoping that we could basically lock him up somewhere in this room and say, don't come out. We're going to keep you here till you sober up. My daddy wasn't the violent drunk. He was a good man and he loved me. He just had a vice. He had something he had to overcome. What is it that you need to overcome? We all have something. Maybe it's not as dramatic as that, but we all have something we're going to have to overcome to be useful, to be in the fullness of that calling. What is it that you got to overcome? Write that down. You need to answer this question at some point in time before you leave this island. What do you need to overcome? Now, see, my dad did this same cycle. He would get sober, get a new job, do good for 2 months, get promoted. He was a great salesman, had a great personality. Everybody loved him. Anytime he walked in a room, he just lit it up. Everybody loved him, but he had this problem. So what would happen is he'd be coming home from work one day, and maybe he had a bad day, and he'd say, well, I'm going to stop by the gas station and get one beer, just one, like my brothers do. And then he'd pull into the gas station, and he'd get inside and say, well, there's a sale on, the 6-pack is on sale. Might as well get that. You know, matter of fact, look how cheap the case is. And, you know, I'll take some of these and give them to my brothers when they come over. Man, he'd have half that case drunk before he got home. And then it'd be another 2-3 weeks where he's out incapacitated, and me and my mother answering the phone when the work call, where's Billy, hadn't shown up, and we make excuses. Daddy's sick. Daddy's got the flu, whatever. And it's okay, when he heals, tell him to come on back. And he would 2 weeks later. But then 2 months down the road, he'd be right there again, and they'd figure it out. They'd be like, we really love you, Daddy, but we got to move on. So this happened from the time I was in middle school all the way to my senior year in high school. And finally, my mother didn't know what else to do. She finally sent the paperwork, the divorce paperwork, submitted it to him. And the craziest thing happened. That was the last time my daddy ever drank a drop, was when he got those papers. The last 15 and a half years of his life, he never touched a drop again. He had hit his rock bottom, you understand? We had told him for years, and he had tried for years. He said he was serious for years, but when he got that paperwork, that was the game changer. What do you need to make the decision that you need to make? Think about this question. What do you need to make the decision that you need to make? Now, see, here's what happened. My daddy got in the program and really worked it. Got sober, and then he did the right thing. What he did was he started to go out and help other people get off addiction and get off alcohol like he was addicted to. He'd go to jails and prisons and start, AA, NA, all of that, and help these people get off the streets. So when I'm at the wake, I'm finding out what my daddy's been doing for the last 15 years, because my daddy never talked about it. He never bragged or said where he was going or what he was doing or nothing. He'd get a call at 1 a.m. He said, I got to go see a friend. And my dad was a good man, so we didn't think any shady things was going on, right? But he was going to help a friend that was in recovery. But he never talked about it. And I'm at this wake, the people that he had been helping got up and spoke on his behalf. They said, one guy came up and said, I was on the side of the road at 2 a.m, about to go to jail because I have 2 strikes, and if your daddy didn't come get me, I'd been in prison for a long time. But he came and got me at 2 a.m. Another one came up and said, your daddy came to the jail and bailed me out when my family had turned their back on me and thrown away the key. They had all given up on me. But your daddy said, I'm not going to give up on you, son. And he said, I've been sober now 7 years. A couple came up and said, we were at the kitchen table about to file divorce, and your daddy said, don't do it. We went to counseling. We've been married 10 years since that day at the kitchen table and never been more happy. Now, what I'm hearing from them didn't bother me that day, but what did bother me is what I wasn't hearing. See, everything in my life that I was chasing, getting up, the rims, the chains, the watches, and all of that, nobody's talking about that at the wake. Nobody's like, you know what? Your daddy sure did have nice rims. Nobody's talking about it. Man, I never seen nobody make it rain like your daddy at the strip club. Nobody's talking that way at the wake, right? But here it is. I'm getting up every single day, living and dying over this nonsense at the end where it means nothing. See, I realized life was about legacy. And the only way you live on the eternal is to sow life in others. You live on in other people. We're going to make sure we live on. My goal is to impact 1 billion people. We're going to sow and sow and sow. We're going to make sure. Come on. So I know Brittany has worked with you on your eulogies and your legacies, but if you hadn't got it clear before you leave this island, decide what it is that you want to live for. What is worth giving your most precious commodity, which is your time, because you can't get that back. Jeremy can get your money back. If you lose money somewhere, he can get it back. But the time we can't do anything about. What is worth allocating your time to? What is worth giving your everything to? See, for me, speaking is a little different. I can't breathe without it. There's a difference in just getting up and speaking. I literally cannot breathe without this. You understand? Like, my life is nothing if I don't do this. I do this 24/7, 365, and when I'm not doing it, I feel uncomfortable. And I'm thinking about getting to it so that I can do it again. You've got to find that thing that you can't live without. What is that? What is the thing that when the alarm goes off in the morning, you open your eyes and say, yes, I get to do it all again. Right? What is that? We don't want I got to get up and do this job that I can't stand. to go deal with coworkers that I can't stand, to sell a product that I don't believe in, to customers that give me headaches, to give all my time to that, to come home and not have a life, right? It has to be something that you say, yes. And when you go to bed at night and you're about to close your eyes, you want to be in this state. No, I don't want to go to sleep. What is that? What is that life? Let's live that. Nobody told me that in high school. We graduated, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What kind of job pays? They never said, man, live. Find something that makes you alive. Do that. Find that thing. And these coaches here in G-Force can help you package it up in a way to add that value to the world. And the compensation from that value will come to you. Most people seek money first, seek the calling, seek the gifting, seek the flame first. Seek the flame. Everybody say, burn, baby, burn. Come on. Burn, baby, burn. I was reading this article by this author who was very, very successful. And they asked him, they said, how is it that you put out so many, bestsellers? What is your creative process? How do you sit down and write a book, right? And the author said something profound. He said, well, I keep it simple. What I do is, when I'm first getting started on a book, is I write the last chapter first. He said, because this way I will know where I am going to end up. I always want to know where I'm going to end up in my story. Now, that eulogy that you did with Brittany, the headstone and the obituary things that the funeral director spoke to me about, this is the last chapter. Right? It's like when we get in the car, we go to GPS, get on there, the GPS says, in destination. Where you going? You don't just get in the car and be like, well, just take me somewhere. I hope I end up somewhere in life. Right? There's a specific outcome, destination that you have to put in there. So many people in this world don't have that put in the end. They don't have the ending. And we wonder why the world is so chaotic. We all bumping into each other because we don't know where the heck we're going. Come on. Listen, when you really, really decide, I don't mean just hope and wish. I mean decide. Decisions ignite the explosion of change. When you really decide, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to achieve, this is who I'm going to be, you become consolidated on the inside. The energy on the inside begins to consolidate, and what happens is you become magnetic. You start to become magnetic, and you start attracting the opportunities, and the doors start opening, the people start coming into your life to make that dream a reality. Come on. The other night, we set a number, 400, remember? As soon as I got back to my room, opportunities started hitting my phone to make that 400 a reality. Once we set the goal, that was it. What's your vision? Make sure, listen, all the greats, if you study all the greats through history, they had vision. Vision is the genesis of all greatness. My ex-wife and I, a couple years ago, built a brand new house. And first thing we did, we went to a builder, which some of y'all are familiar with doing this process. But we get to the builder's office, and it was almost just like I was at the funeral home. The man said, before we can start building, we need you to answer some questions, and slid 150 questions across the table and say, answer these before we start. And it was, what kind of house do you want? 3-bedroom, 5-bedroom, 2-story, 3-story, on the waterfront, on the lake, in a gated community, right? Tile roofs, granite floors, what kind of paint, all that. We had to decide on every decision, every question had to be answered before they started, because they don't just show up at the lot and with a bunch of 2x4s and a hammer and say, I hope we build something that you like. Right? That's not how it works. And you wouldn't buy that house anyway, would you? Come on. But see, we laughing, but how many of us getting up every day with that hammer and that 2x4 saying, I hope I build something. I don't know what the heck I'm building, but I sure love swinging this hammer. And I stub my thumb a few times. Come on. Legacy, remember that. Make this life count. You know, I got a text this morning when I woke up and it said by the door there was a drop off. And it said in memory of tomorrow. I believe that's the way we pronounced it. And it got me to thinking back, because tomorrow was here at the last speech I gave on this island. And we actually left the island together. There was only two of us on the boat, and we left together. I was the last one out of here with her. And we went all the way to the airport, flew on the same plane to Puerto Rico, and then we got separated in customs. Like, she went to one desk and I went to the other, and then we were both late because the plane had been running late, and we both were running through the airport trying to get to the plane. I didn't get to the plane, she did. And then, a few days later, she was in a coma, and a week or so later, I think she passed away. And I kept thinking, what could I have said to her that I didn't? Now, I sold life to her all the way on the boat. I mean, we were talking, and I was selling life, but I kept saying, man, you had that shot. What should you have said? And I started looking at it differently from then on, because I'm thinking, like, everyone around me, just like my dad, I didn't know that was going to happen. It just happened like that. Who around you do you need to say your feelings to? Like, I love you. Who do you need to say that to that you haven't said it to? Don't wait, because you don't know how long you have. There's so many things I wish I'd have said to my daddy. Me and my daddy were on good terms when he died, but man, I was like, if I could have said this or said that. I never really told him how proud of him I was, and that made me feel so guilty for years. My daddy got sober for 15 years, and we kind of pounded on him when he was drinking all those years, and he got sober, and I never said, you know what, Dad, I'm just super proud of you. And I didn't do it because I was scared. I was scared if I said, you know how it is, I don't want to jinx it. I might say something, and then he would fall back, and then I'd feel guilty, so let me not say anything. I never said what needed to be said. Write this down. What needs to be said, and who do I need to say it to? See, questions will take you wherever you want to go. You just got to ask the right questions. Questions are transportation. Remember that. Successful people just ask better questions on a more consistent basis. While the world says, why does this happen to me? The successful person says, why not? And how do I get stronger in this moment? And how do I take what the world has thrown to me and turn it into a testimony? Different question, different outcome. So you got to have a vision for your life. Vision is the starting point for personal transformation. You got to get it here. And this is with everything. Whether you're going through like Les with the cancer, you got to see yourself coming out of that. See, only a person possessed with a dream can sustain through the trials and tribulations of life in order to manifest it. You got to let that dream get a hold of you. Now, the second thing I want to talk about today is identity. You get a vision, right? Like for this island, like Brittany had the vision. But there's an identity required in order to come pick this thing up, right? Like I get packages all the time in the mail, and some of them I have to sign for. So I go to the post office, and they got a package waiting on me. But I can't pick it up until I pull out my ID and say, this is who I am. Then I get the package. No ID, no package. Life is the same way. Success is waiting for you. All of it is waiting for you, but you can't pick up that success without the identity required to do it. So write this question down. Who do I need to be in order to seize this dream that I'm dreaming? Now, some of you might know what you're called to do, and some of you might still be searching for it. Now, the first thing that I would suggest to do is get alone with God, your creator, your maker, every single day. Get alone. That alone time. All the secrets and mysteries of your life will be revealed in the silence. That's where you find the answers. Come on. See, the enemy knows this. Why do you think he makes the world so noisy and so distractful? Because if you ever get alone, you'll start asking different questions. Come on. If I can keep these people with their eyes down on their phones looking at their news feeds instead of looking inside at who I made them to be, then I can derail the plans of God. Come on, somebody. Now, each and every one of you, I want to say this to you. Each and every one of you here, you got greatness in you. Greatness made you. Therefore, greatness is in you. Come on now. God don't make mistakes. You have been strategically designed in the most perfect and effective way to achieve the plans that God has put on your life. You're not a mistake. What you see as a flaw and a weakness is something required in order to develop the dream. You just can't see it right now. I read this quote here too. Let me read this because I was reading it out there before I came in. It says, this is William Blake, the great poet, great teacher. He said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. If the doors of perception were cleansed. That's where Jim Morrison got the name for the doors too. Nice. From that right there. Speaking of Jim, let me tell you about this story. I was watching his documentary and his movie. If you know the great Jim Morrison, he basically was the 60s. He was the idol, the one that symbolizes that era, the revolution. That's him, right? But here's the thing. He didn't always know his identity either. You know, he went through many failures and insecurities until he found it. And it was very, very interesting. He started out and he was in film school. Put out a few films in class and they laughed at him and, you know, rejected his work and he quit school. He was just writing poetry. And then one day he had a friend and said, man, you ought to sing them poems you got. That would be awesome. Those would be amazing songs. He's like, I can't sing. And he couldn't, but what did it really matter? Right? If you're in your calling, what does it matter, right? So they began to record songs and he goes out to his first playing gigs at these clubs out on Sunset Strip in Hollywood. And he's so insecure when he gets up there on stage, he sings with his back to the crowd. He does. He sings with it. Now, this guy goes on to be the superstar idol where everybody just worships this guy in the 60s. He wasn't even brave enough to turn around and look at the crowd. He started right here. But see, what was happening was he was slowly chiseling away and finding himself. And then when he turned around, they went crazy. And he's like, this is who I am. He discovered his identity. So the question is today, who are you? And it's okay, because some of you need to hear this and understand this. It's okay if you've been singing to the world like this up until now. It's not going to be okay tomorrow, but today, right now, we're going to give you permission. It was okay. Now it's time to turn around. Burn, baby, burn. Come on. Now you say, well, maybe I'm scared. I'm scared to be me, and what if I get rejected and all of that? In 2017, I lost my old faithful dog that had been with me 15 and a half years. Her name was Half Pint. And boy, she rode with me, ride or die, for 15 years. Every problem I had, I'd go out on walks and talk to God, and that little dog would go right with me. I mean, right? Every time, the trial, tribulation, that dog comes sit next to me. He's like, I ain't leaving my people. See, I had adopted the dog. I found it in the back of the recording studio that I was recording at. Somebody had abandoned it. It was like 3 months old, had mange all over it. And I looked at it and I said, you need a home. And the dog said, no, I need some French fries. Give me, because I was eating French fries. But we made a deal. I'll give you some french fries, come home with me. I help get you over that mange, and then you become my little buddy, right? So 15 years I had this dog, and almost just like my daddy, this dog ended up dying right in front of me in my arms. I saw the eyes, I saw the last breath, I saw the struggle, and I'm like, Lord, how much of this can I take about people that really mean something to me and seeing them die like this? But 6 months later, my wife at the time bought me another dog. She knew I needed something, and I really liked animals, but I felt this. Maybe y'all felt this too, because it's about animals, but maybe it applies to everything else in life. I didn't want to get another dog because I thought if I got another dog, it meant I didn't really love the old dog enough. You know, like you can just move on and act like somebody else can replace me, right? I felt guilty, and I'm like, no, I can't do that because I'll let Half Pint down, which was silly. Because Half Pint would say, go love another dog, you know? But I was like, I can't, dishonor. Like I did with my daddy. I stuck 7 years in depression because I thought if I just got over my daddy really didn't mean anything, right? Like if you just get up tomorrow and be grateful and happy and all this, it's like your daddy must not have meant anything to you. We must mourn for a long time if they meant something, right? I adopted these false beliefs. But the wife had given me this new little dog, and it was a Yorkie, and about 2 pounds. Got it about 8 weeks old, 9 weeks old. Beautiful little dog I call Bentley, little Bentley. Still got it. And I remember the first little walk I took him on. I took him out in the backyard, right? And I put him down on the ground. I was like, go play. But he was scared. Very skittish. Like he would shake like this, like, didn't know what was going to happen. And he'd walk out there a little bit and then look back at me like, was it okay? I'm like, it's okay. And he'd come back over here like, no, and be real scared. I'm like, and I'm trying to calm him down. But he's just shaking. And I remember, because God will speak to me at the weirdest time. God spoke in my spirit right then. He said, you see little Bentley? He said, that's you. And just like you won't let anything happen to that little dog in that backyard, I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. Right? And that little shaking that he's doing, you do this all day. And the thing that I've called you to do. See, that was another part of the lesson. You got the dream, you got the vision, and your identity is tied to the one who made you. He's not going to let you fail. He's got your back. Now, when you truly get that down in your spirit, then you can be bold enough to do the things required. But until you adopt that, hey, God has got me. The universe has got me. The universe is for me. You got to get that mindset, not against me, like everything is against me. Those are false identities. Those that believe in limitations have succumbed to the madness of illusion. Let us not go mad, right? I think it was Nietzsche. He said, those that stare into the abyss long enough, the abyss will stare back, right? Those that stare at limitation long enough, limitation will look back. Come on. And we know that's not the truth, that they're limitations, because what does the word say? With God, all things are possible. All things are possible. See, I'm going to give you some truth today that's going to set you free. Come on. The great sculptor and painter Michelangelo, somebody asked a question to him one day. He said, how do you put these beautiful faces on the rock? And his answer was so profound. He said, I don't put faces on the rock. Those faces have always been there. What I do is chisel around the limestone and the rock to everything that doesn't belong. I chisel that off until all remains is the beauty that was always there. It's the same with us. You've got to chisel away at the false beliefs and identities and illusions that you have adopted. That is the limestone. You've got to chisel that off. This is what I mean by you must unlearn all that you have learned in order to become all that you can be. Unlearn that stuff. Here's the question for you. Write this down. What lie about me am I buying? If you got a stock you don't like, Jeremy, what do you do with it?
Get out.
Come on. If you don't like your life now, let go, sell out the beliefs that maintain that existence. Come on. Just because you have done something your whole life all the way up to this point doesn't mean it's you. You can change that. It's not your identity. This is just what you have chosen up until this point. Our life is just the fruit of our most dominant thoughts and thinking patterns. You want a new life? Just adopt new thinking. New thinking, new questions, new paradigms produce a new existence. And see, let me give you an example about unlearning. See, when we're in the womb, it says God knew us before we were, right? When we're in the womb before we came into this world, we knew our maker, the power that was on the inside of us. We knew all the giftings. We knew that nothing could stop us. We knew who had our back. We knew the language of heaven. We knew it all. We had that power. But when we came into this world, the first thing, when we come out of the womb and the doctor hits us on the back, and we scream out, right? From that moment forward, the world bombards us with lies and illusions. The enemy is hoping to derail you and blind you from your true identity. The world starts right then and says, that's a fat baby. Or that's a skinny baby. That's an ugly baby, right? The lies start right then. Right then they start. And you know what happens after years and years? You go through kindergarten, you go through middle school, you go through high school, and by the time you get there, your false identities and beliefs have been established, and you are living a lie. What I call a spiritual coma. You have forgotten who you are. Amnesia. Here's the question. How much of you is not really you? How much of you is not you? You're beautiful, strong, and amazing. That's the truth. Every single one of you. The enemy don't want you to find that out, but that's the truth. Don't let somebody else define beauty, greatness. Who told you that? I was out in Las Vegas last year playing at Top Golf, driving the driving range. I don't know if y'all know what Top Golf is, but out doing driving. And I had the luck of playing with a bunch of business guys that had never played golf before. So I look like Tiger Woods. I'm just mediocre, but playing with a bunch of guys that never played before, I look good. And I felt kind of in my pride. I was like, yeah. So I'd hit the ball and go 100. I said, oh, look how hard, 192 yards or whatever, right? And they would step up and shank to the left, shank to the right, But my gifting is, and my calling is teaching, right? And one of the guys finally said an untruth about himself that I couldn't let just sit there. He said, about the third time that he had shanked the ball, he said, well, I'm just not athletic. And boom, it was like a gong went off on the inside of me. It was like, because it was a lie. He just said a lie. And I looked at him, I said, who told you weren't athletic? He looked at me, he's like, well, I've never been good. I said, listen, that's not the problem. What the problem is you don't know the technique of how to drive the ball. It's not that you're not athletic, you just don't know the technique. There's a difference between not knowing the execution than not being capable of doing it. Do you understand that? So what we did is I went on Google and put in the search how to hold the club to drive the ball. Showed him, how about this man beat me in the game? The moral of the story, wait till after the game to teach. See, that was a false lie and belief that this man had adopted. How many things that stopped him from doing in life because he said he wasn't athletic? How many things right now are you not doing because you bought into some lie somebody told about you? It's like you come from a family, let's say for an example, you come from a family that never had money, that was broke, and they say, oh, our family doesn't come from money. We don't know much about money. And you adopt this your whole life, not realizing that's not the case. Money's just a technique, right? I'm not a stock trader. No, you just don't know the techniques, right? Techniques are teachable. Identity is so important because you truly can't see the vision that God has with these false identities. It blurs the perception, right? And I'll give you one of the examples how the enemy attacked me when I was young. When I was 3 years old, my mother and father dropped me off at a daycare center. They took care of me up to about 3. And then they put me in the daycare so they could go back to full-time work. And the people that they dropped me off to just weren't good people. And when I came in every single day, for some reason they had put on me the label, you're the bad kid. I don't know how I'm 3 years old. How are you a bad kid? I don't know. But they had labeled me this identity. And every day when I would walk in, there was another kid too that they had put this label on. When we got there and mama left and they'd wave, oh great, Billy's here. You know how the people would do it the daycare, oh we just love him. And as soon as they leave, you come here little boy, you know? That's the way they treated me. Now, they used to tie us up every single day in a chair in the corner of the room for hours and leave us there. All the other little kids would be out here playing and me and him would be sitting here tied up, couldn't move in this chair. Every single day. And I didn't tell my mom because I'm thinking I'm going to get a whooping when I get home because I've been bad and I hadn't even done anything. But I've already started to adopt that something is wrong with me. I am different than everyone else. Right? I remember sitting in the corner and the teacher would come around noontime and gather all the little kids and make a circle. And she would sit right in the middle of the circle and read the stories. Right? And I remember sitting in this chair saying I would do anything to be inside that circle with them. And here's how it affected me from that moment on, psychologically, I always felt outside the clique. And I thought I had to do something to earn love, to earn my way back into the circle. I chased success at high levels because I thought if I got it, somebody would finally say, come now, you can sit in the circle with us. I didn't know this. Underneath. This is underneath. So you build these identities and you don't know where they come from until you do some real inner research. But these things I found out years later. Things that get embedded and impressed upon you. Another thing I had when I was around 18 or 19 and I was really beginning to get serious about music. But I didn't have anything. I didn't have a car, didn't have money, nothing at this point in time. And I was dating this girl and her mother just did not like me. Y'all ever had somebody like that with a parent when you was dating, they didn't like you? And the crazy thing about it was she didn't mind making it known either. The mama didn't mind making it known that she didn't like me. She told me straight up, she looked me directly in my face and say, you ain't never gonna be nothing and I don't want you with my daughter. She said it just like that, looking in my eyes. Now, I come from a totally different environment. My mother used to get up every day and said, son, you can do whatever you want, put your mind to it. From the time I was 5 years old, we were going to Amway seminars all around the country because she was in Amway. And I was listening to the greatest speakers in the world on the stage saying this stuff. And this lady comes up to me and said, you ain't never gonna be nothing. I don't want my daughter with you. I didn't even understand the language she was saying, but it hurts hearing it from somebody else. Because then what I started to believe was, mama's mom, and she's just saying these things, and what this lady's saying is real, right? We take the world's opinion more than we do the ones that love us because we think it's biased. But here's the thing. I got up every single day in that music life I was in, and that cycled in the back of my mind. Are you just a dreamer? Are you going to actually execute this dream? Are you a nobody like she said, or are you going to achieve what you came to do? Now, we fought almost every single day because the mom made it difficult for me and the girl. We were together 5 years, but she began to make it very, very difficult and started sewing into her daughter like he's nothing, he's nothing, he's nothing. What happened was she had just gotten divorced, and her husband and me had a lot of similarities, and she saw the husband in me and was trying to put that on me, right, and her daughter. She ended up back with the husband, the one she used to say all the same nasty stuff about. She ended up back with him. But here's the thing. I got up every single day warring with that lie that she gave me, so much so that me and the girlfriend ended up breaking up, and I was bitter. Like, I'll forgive you for a lot of things, but if you doubt me, I'm going to cut you off. You know, and that's the way it was in my life. I got so bitter and so angry. Here's the thing, though. 9 months after me and her broke up, I got my first record deal. 3 months after that, I was 18 on Billboard, had a new car, everything. And I remember riding by her house, honking the horn. Tell your mom hello for me, right? Come on. So you got to get up every day and war with these false identities that are trying to steal from you. The greatest thief in the world is the illusion, the lie about you that you have bought. That is the greatest thief in the world, the lie that you bought about you. You know, the moment my dad died, I basically retired from music. I said, no more. I'm not going to get on stage and destroy people any longer. But here's the thing. I didn't know what my new calling was. I didn't know what my new mission was. For 17 years, I got up and was very clear about what I was here on earth for, to rap, to do music. Now, all of a sudden, there's a void. Who are you? And this happens a lot with, musicians and NFL players. They have seasons or whatever that they play in the league. And as soon as they get out of the league, they don't know who they are. All this, life that they've had up until this point, they've been a football player, a superstar, and now that thing is gone. Who are you? And I didn't know the answer to that. So I'd get up every single day and ask God, what have you called me to do? What have you called me to do? What do you call me to do? Now, I had a recording studio at this point in time in my living room. And when I retired, I still just left it there. I didn't take my equipment down or anything. I just left it there. And I had this big mic sitting in the middle of the room, right, for years. Now, here's what I would do. I would put on my shoes to go outside to talk to God. To get this straight, I was looking for answers. I was seeking you will find. So I would get up every day, put my shoes on, and I'd start walking to the door, and I'd kind of be looking down, getting ready to go outside and talk. And every single day, I'd bump into this mic in my head. Boom. I'd be like, and I'd move this mic, and I'd go outside, and I'd say, Lord, tell me what my calling is. And then I'd come back inside, looking down, same kind of thing, kind of depressed because I hadn't got the answers I wanted. I come back inside and bump into the mic again. I did this for 2 years, I kid you not, every day. But I wouldn't move the mic. I just move it when I walk by and put it right back. But every day I bumped into it. Lord, why won't you answer me? I'm praying, I'm going to church every day. You won't give me the answer. So here's the question. What are you bumping into every day? What around you are you bumping into every day that you're not seeing? I know God was like, Billy, the mic. I literally had bruises on my forehead. But see, I was beginning to turn around like Jim. I was beginning to slowly turn around into my identity. In 2017, God put in my spirit YouTube. See, when I've been going through the struggle, which I'll go into in a little bit. When my dad died, I was in a 7-year season of deep, dark depression. And my therapist used to tell me, he said, you come see me 1 hour a week. So there's 6 days and 23 hours before you're going to see me again. So what I want you to do when you go home is when the depression comes on, the panic attacks come on, all the stuff that I was dealing with, when it comes on you, I want you to go on YouTube and put on something positive. Listen to these motivational things. Now, little did I know this was about to be my future. See, I was beginning to turn around, right? Things were beginning to line up to show me what I was supposed to do. I didn't know that. I'm thinking, okay, this is just about getting through the panic, getting through the fears, when it was really, man, it's teaching me, like you said last night, the cadence of speaking, the phrasing, the dynamics, all of that. I was learning. It was going in my ear, and I didn't even know. God was preparing me for the dream before I even began to dream. Before I even went to sleep, God was preparing me. Do you understand that? And around 2017, I cut my first YouTube video. Now, when I put that video out, I still had my back to the world. I did not understand who I was. I was just like, I'm going to put this out and see what I sound like and put it out. I wasn't thinking, man, I'm going to be going around the world on a 30-city tour across multiple nations, speaking and so on. Like, I was just like, I want to have fun. I just enjoy music. I enjoy creativity. I enjoy the inspiration, personal development. That's what I love. Had no idea of making this a career, nothing. But every week, I'd put out a new video, one a week. Now, fast forward about 4 months of 17 in April, I had a grand total of 50 subscribers on YouTube. 50, woo, there we go. Despise not the day of small beginnings, as the word says. Come on. But
what is the balance between having written the last chapter and speaking with your back to the audience?
in order to walk all those things out, that the dreams that I set, you've got to adopt that identity in order to be able to do it. Now, the legacy in that last chapter is pliable. It's okay to still change as you discover more about you, right? Like I know I'm going to go to Atlanta. Let's say I'm in Orlando and I'm going to Atlanta, but I haven't booked my hotel yet. I don't know where I'm going to stay, but when I get to Atlanta, I'll start looking. But I know where I'm going. I know I'm going to Atlanta, right? The things will begin to unfold as you go, and you'll start to learn, and the secrets will begin to be revealed to you. Piece by piece, you will begin to understand who you really are. But here's the thing. You have to be a good steward of each little piece when nothing makes sense. Once you show that you're a good steward of things when they don't make sense, God will begin to make the sense for you. So I'm sitting there, 50 subscribers, and I'll be honest, the 50, most of those were mom and the fam, right? I remember putting the little videos out, and every now and then I would get that little notification from YouTube. It said, you have a comment. I'm like, oh, somebody heard my stuff, right? Because I couldn't see on my end, on the back end, who was listening to my stuff on YouTube. It'd say, you had 20 views or 10 views, but it never said who, how long, nothing of that. So I'd get that notification and say, you have a notification on YouTube, a comment. So I would run. I'd be like so excited. I'd open it up, and it'd be mom like this. Great job, Billy, right? Mom, right? And then this would be like on Monday, because I would put the videos out usually, Sunday or Monday. Then on Wednesday, I'd get another one. I'd be so excited. Okay, mom's out the way now, right? I'd open it up on Wednesday, and it would be Aunt Linda. Mom told me about your new video,
Linda.
It was frustrating because, I'm four months in now, and the dream is starting to come to me, this big grand vision now. But my physical world, the realm that I'm living in the flesh, is not representing or not representative of the dream I'm dreaming yet. There's no evidence. How is 50 subscribers 1 billion? It's not. And that math is hard to get to, right? From 50. So I started getting, like we all do, frustrated. And then, of course, the doubters and haters around me. How many of y'all got those? What are you doing in there yelling on the mic? I remember, though, somebody really, really close to me, they meant well. you know people that mean well, but their doubts and fears are not really conducive to what God has put on the inside of you. And you've got to deal with them because they're close and you can't just X them out of your life because they're next to you every day. But I remember getting in this heated argument, this exchange, and the person said to me, "You really believe all that stuff you're saying on them videos?" See, the enemy knows that questions will take you wherever you want to go too. Remember in the garden? Did God really say don't eat that? Right? It was a question. Had the enemy said, go eat the tree, they wouldn't have done it. He asked the question, opened their mind up, which caused things to initiate. And the enemy was trying to do the same thing here. You really believe all that stuff? They said, why are you always living in fantasy land? Right? Come on. Anybody heard that? You think all this stuff is going to happen. It's time to get with reality. There's bills to be paid, Jeremy. Right? Like for real, right? And I remember it so vividly because I was at a point already I was shaky. I was already feeling like it wasn't going to happen. I'm crazy. This is not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I'm already on the verge of giving up, and somebody else is pouring that lighter fluid. Come on, give up like I did. Right? Your friends give up. Give up like I did. Right? I call these people, I got a new word. They say we live through our words, right? We live through the words that we have. So I had to make a new word up for a new experience. I call them the Majip. It's Maijeep. And there's a reason for everything. The Ma is symbolic for the masses, right? The I is they want you to sell your I, your identity, to go get that J, the job, so you can be a sheep like everyone else. Come on, the Majip. Come on. We make new words up. See, who said we can't make a word up? Why must we live with all that's in the Oxford Dictionary? Why can't we make a new word up? You didn't know you could make a new word up about your life, did you? My people perish for a lack of knowledge. Come on, right? You can do anything you set your mind to. But I'm struggling because I want to give up, and this person is hitting me right where I'm weak, trying to instill that doubt and fear, trying to derail the plans God has for me. And I remember going in there to my studio that day, mad, on the verge of giving up, and I'm sitting in front of that mic, and I'm like, I've got to do something right now and get control of myself, because if I don't, I'm going to give up. I knew that. I was at the crossroad. On the left is reality. This is never going to happen. 9 to 5, a life of limitations. Be like everybody else. Lukewarm. And on the right was the fire and the promises of God. With God, all things are possible. I'm the head and not the tail, above, not below. I lend to many nations and not borrow. Come on. That was on the right. Freedom was on the right. But it's hard because I could not see it. These things I was having to envision and imagine. And over here, these things seemed real. And I was at this crossroad. Which one am I going to believe? Which vision is my mind going to bow to? See, faith is the center point where man and God meet. And which one of these was I going to believe and have faith in and make mine? And I remember getting on that mic because I was about to quit. I was like, I got to get control of myself. So I began to talk on this mic. I said I was born a champion. Because I had to remind myself, see, the identity. I was raised a champion. All I ever do is be a champion. I got champion in my bloodline. Right? I would say these things, and I just started talking. So I put the music on and hit record. Now, mind you, I'm not recording this thing for anybody else. This message right here wasn't for somebody else. This one was for me, and I never really planned on anybody even hearing it. But I was like, I got to get control of my mouth, and I got to say it right now before the enemy gets me. And I started speaking life. I said, I'm the head, not the tail, above, not below. And then the craziest thing on the video, I confronted the voices in my head and the things that the enemy was trying to convey through these people around me. I said, you really believe all that stuff you saying? I said this on the video. And I would repeat back, with God, all things are possible. I'm blessed and unstoppable. Like I start speaking this, right? By the end of the video, I had got it all out of me and I was back on my footing again, like, yes. Now, Sunday came and I put the video out to my mom, Linda, my aunt, and the 50 subscribers. I put the video out. And the craziest thing happened. Because see, for once in my life, behind that mic, I was in my gifting, I was in my calling, and I was speaking my true identity. Everything was aligned. See, success is about alignment. You got to align your mind, your mouth, and your feet up with who you are, really are. And I began to speak it with authority. And I put that video out. The craziest thing happened. Some big motivational channels reached out to me and said, listen, we like your speech. Can we use it on our channel? I said, yes. They put it out and it went viral. Viral. Millions of views. Millions of views. Now, that catapulted and initiated and unlocked the dream. That was the key that unlocked it. But I was at that crossroad, and had I not made the decision when I didn't see anything and when I only had 50 subscribers, if I didn't walk boldly then, I wouldn't be here now. Maybe you're at this crossroad. Choose life. Choose freedom. Choose the flame. Now, I don't say the thing about going viral and all that to boost me. What I'm trying to show you is, your breakthrough is just right around the corner. The more you want to give up, the closer your breakthrough is. That's why it's getting a little harder. Do you understand that? See, I was about to quit at the very time I was about to take off. Maybe some of y'all in here are right there in that situation. Don't give up. The thing is, we don't know where we're at on the timeline. Now, here's the thing. I wrote this book that she mentioned earlier. I wrote Blessed and Unstoppable in 2016 before I ever got on the mic speaking. I trusted God with the vision he put in me to write the book. And here's the thing. I didn't know how in the world I was going to ever sell it. I didn't have a publisher, didn't know anything about that world, never wrote a book before. Everybody said, you can't do it, da-da-da-da, who you writing a book, blah, 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 blah. And this is before YouTube. But see, God knew. Look, when I launch you on YouTube, you're going to need funds. There's no vision without provision, right? I had to do this, so when the video took off and went viral, the book went viral too. Sold in 31 countries. Video played in 150 nations, right? This took off. Now, when I did this book, I didn't know all that stuff was going to happen. I had to be a good steward of the dream that God had put inside of me. Just like Neil said, hey, you got a book in you. Well, you don't know what you're going to do with it. You've got to be a good steward of that new knowledge that you have now. You don't need to know it all right now. All you need to do is take the next step. That's it. Be responsible with the next step. And God will continue to trust you and continue to enlighten you and show you the path. You don't need to know it all. Here's what I learned from that whole experience. You don't need to know it all right now. If you're not being a good steward of what you know now, why should the universe give you tomorrow? Do you understand that? You can't handle today. Before you can go to the next level, you got to master where you're at. Isn't that right, Jeremy? You told us the other day, 4% trades. You can't trade $4 million in a trade if you hadn't traded 4,000. You're not going to be ready for the kind of responsibility that comes with that trade, right? So be a good steward of what you have right now. Write this down. What do I have in my hand? And what I mean by that is, in the Bible, there's a part where Moses is called to do things, to go talk to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Moses is like, who am I? I'm a nobody. How are you going to send me in there to the king? I have nothing. I am nothing. And he said, what do you have in your hand? He had a staff. And that was enough. That's all he needed because God had anointed him to do what needed to be done. So what I'm saying to you right now is Stop talking about what you don't have, who you don't know, the doors that aren't opening, and say, what do I have right now that I can use? How do I leverage right now what I have and use that the most effective way that I can? And when you do that, God will show up. When you're a good and faithful steward, God will show up. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes, if we were to get the dream too early, it would destroy us. We're not ready for it, right? So some of the pruning and stuff you're going through is to prepare you for that. And let me give you my example. See, I had some stuff I hadn't dealt with before this video went viral on the inside that I had to deal with in order to do the dream of impacting 1 billion. I was going to have to deal with it, but I didn't want to deal with it. Now, here's the thing. The video goes viral. But at the time that it does, I still have a mirror problem. Anybody ever had a mirror problem? I don't mean just looks. I mean like when you look in the mirror and you say, I'm just not happy with me. Who would ever like me? Who am I to speak, right? I know some of y'all said that last night when you heard Les saying y'all could tell your story. Inside that little voice said, who are you to think you can speak? Come on, somebody. Be real. That voice is the one I'm talking about. I had a mirror problem. Like, who are you to go out and speak? The voice was saying to me, I had a mirror problem. Because see, here's what happened. When I was listening to those videos back in 2010, when I was in therapy, the people I was watching, like Les, all of them looked a certain way, dressed a certain way, talked a certain way, came from a certain background. And me, if you haven't noticed, I don't come from that world. Right? I don't have the suit and the Harvard dialect, and I don't come from that world. So my mind started saying, the gifting, the anointing is from God. There's no denying that. The voice is working and it's setting people on fire. But Lord, you done put it in the wrong package. Anybody ever felt like that? Come on. I'm being real, so I got to be transparent if we're going to make breakthroughs. Real breakthroughs require a real conversation. Sometimes it's with another person, and sometimes the conversation is with yourself. And I had a mirror problem. The phone started ringing all across the world to book me for speaking when that video jumped off. But here's the problem. I got that mirror problem. And I'll be honest. Have you ever dreamed a dream? Wanted it to happen? Didn't quite believe it was going to happen and was scared if it did. Right? I had all different emotions around this dream, okay? So when the phone started ringing, they would call me up and they say, listen, we want to come book you 20 grand to come speak, do the keynote. 20 minutes, 20 grand, will you do it? That sounds good unless you got a mirror problem. I had such a mirror problem in 2017 up until this point, 18. I never put a picture out of me on social media. I had a logo, Blessed and Unstoppable. That's why Brittany couldn't find me. Because I was like, if they see the packaging, they're not going to take it. See, I had the insecurities. Not realizing that God qualifies us. Come on. I didn't realize that there. See, I was Jim Morrison. But I'm singing it. I sound good, but no, I can't look back there yet. I'm not ready for that. So when these phone calls would come in, I turned them down. I would make excuses. I'm booked that week. I wasn't booked. They thought I was playing hardball with negotiating. Okay, they call back 10 minutes later. We'll give you 30 grand. And you only got to speak 15 minutes. No, I'm booked. I can't come. Now, we talked about 400. I lost 400. So I lost 400, at least 400,000 in phone calls that I didn't go do simply because I was too scared to go. Listen to me. See, when we talked about 400, I just want my money back that I gave up to the enemy. See, come on. You feel me? That's it. Every time the phone rings, I'm busy. I can't do it. And then I start feeling bad, right? Because you're supposed to confront your fears, but you don't have the guts to do it. And then it just keeps going more like, now who you think you are? You won't even take the phone call. I would hate to pick the phone up. I wouldn't even pick it up. I'd let it go to voicemail because I was scared to tell him. And this happened for almost 18 months. The insecurities and fears. But God had to work on me in order for me to fulfill the mission. He had patience and finally was like, we got to deal with this. There's something you got to deal with. And here's the thing. Whatever you're scared of the most is probably in some way connected to your dream, and you're going to have to confront it in some way, shape, or form. Whatever you're scared of the most is probably something you're going to have to deal with in order to do your calling. Write this down. What are you scared of most? Neil said this the other day. What are you scared of the most? To fulfill your mission. You're going to have to deal with the thing that you're scared of the most. Every truth not acknowledged sets us up for a tragedy. Remember this. The longer we don't deal with it, the greater the price, right? Just like if you put your money in the stock market for 18 months, you want a return. And if the enemy sow fear on you and you keep it for 18 months, he wants his return. It's going to cost you more. It's just better to deal with it right now. Pull the Band-Aid off and get into it, and let's deal with it. So here's what happened. You know, every week I would do a different message, and I wouldn't know what I was going to speak about every week, but God would just put the message sometime during the 7 days between Monday and Saturday when I recorded, it would just come to me. Like I'd be in the car driving maybe on Tuesday, and God would say, I want you to talk about fear. Okay, so that'll be the message. I'd let him speak through me, and I'd do that message. Sometimes it'd be Wednesday. Sometimes it'd be the last moment on Saturday, but he'd give me the message, right? Now, he gave me 3 messages in a row, 3 weeks in a row. He gave me 3 messages. And at the time, I thought those messages were for somebody else. Like, oh, Lord, them are good messages for somebody. Not realizing the messages were for me. You ever done that? You say, Lord, that's really cool that you did that for them. But really, it was for you. Because here's what happened. I had to deal with these illusions and these fears of failure and rejection and letting people down, that I'm not good enough, the background, all the lies were sitting there that I hadn't dealt with for 40 years, and I got to deal with them to go to the next levels of success. So the first message God gave me that unleashed me and helped me get over it was, set yourself on fire and the world will come see you burn. Okay, now basically, inside this message, it was articulating that you must do your calling, the thing that you're gifted in, the thing that you're most excited about. And that energy that comes from you doing it, the excitement, will tear down all the walls that stand in your way to do what you've been called to do. You don't need the resources at this moment. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to know how it's going to happen. You don't need all the people around you. You don't need none of that. The first step is to light the tiki torch. Set yourself on fire. Everybody say, burn, baby, burn. Burn, baby, burn. Set yourself on fire. Now, what did Brittany say when she started here? She said, he was on there with a bunch of speakers. I didn't know who he was, but I heard this voice, right? The voice is the flame in you. Whatever you're doing, you've got to be that voice. It doesn't mean physical audio voice, but whatever you're doing, whatever you're gifting, you've got to be that voice. The second message, the second week, it was, truth is the couture for greatness. Truth is the couture. Now, in this message, God made it clear to me that we have to be ourselves. We can't try to be somebody else. Now, we admire our heroes and look up to the mentors and all that, but at the end of the day, the only way this thing works is you to be you. I cannot be Tony Robbins. I cannot be Eric Thomas, Les Brown. I got to be Billy Alsbrooks. That's the only way it works. I admire these people. I can learn and study from these people and refine through their teachings and jump. You know, as mentors, we can jump ahead because we learn on their teachings. But at the end of the day, it's how much of you is you. That's going to determine how far you can go. So you've got to take that fire, that step one that God gave me, set yourself on fire, and wrap it in your truth. Like if I was to come in here with the suit, looking like Les and trying to talk like that, y'all would see right through me. You'd say, that ain't real. Something's off. And we used to talk about it all the time in the rap life because we were from the streets and somebody wasn't from the streets would come talk the gang life and we'd be like, you ain't from here. You don't know nothing about this life, right? You're saying the words, but you don't know nothing about what you're saying, right? So it's got to be your truth. And here's the beauty of it. Your truth is enough. Somebody needs to hear that. You are enough. Say that. I am enough.
I am enough.
That's right. The more you can own that statement, the more powerful you're going to be, and the less it can stop you. And then that last part, the last lesson he gave me was called Unleashed. And basically that's take your fire, wrap it in truth, submit to me, and I will unleash you upon the world to do what I've called you to do. And I will open doors that you could never open in 1,000 years. I will open for you. What would take you 1,000 days of labor, I will do in one. Come on. But you got to buy into this. Now, the end of that third message, I kind of winked at God and was like, okay, I get it. You're talking to me. You're talking to me. I'm thinking you know. Those great messages from other people. No, that was for me. So I realized that I had to confront these things. But I also realized that I was enough. Finally, I said, okay, I'm enough. Halfway. Right? I'm still like, I'm Jim, and I'm like halfway around, turned around. I'm singing sideways. Right? Break on through to the other side. Like I'm halfway there. So I made the bold mistake of telling God that I got the lesson. You ever done that? I get it, Lord. I'm ready now. Put me in, coach. I'm ready. I said, when the phone rang in a couple of weeks from now, I'll answer it, Lord, and I'll take the call. In a few months, whatever they want me to do, I'll do it. Boy, that phone rang that day. But Lord, I said a couple of weeks. Give me a little bit of time to adjust. Phone rang, and I'd already told God I was going to take whatever came, the next call. I didn't care what it was. I was going to take it. And I picked the phone up. It's a big insurance company in Atlanta, Georgia. They're doing a national conference, and they wanted me to be the keynote. 1,000 people. And if you know about insurance, they all wear suits. And that's not me. But I knew I had to be me from this point forward. And I had to be okay with me and say, that's enough. And if they don't like it, then they just don't like it. But I can't be nothing but me. The ones I'm called for will understand this, right? Here's the thing. We're not assigned to everybody. But the ones you are will understand what you came to bring, the gifting that you have. They'll understand it, right? My thing is, I was struggling with, I'm trying to make everybody like me. But the thing was, I didn't like me. Write that down. How much do I like me? Come on. I mean the real you. Let's get deep. Like Neil was asking y'all these questions yesterday. How much do you really like you when no one else is around? The real you. What truth about you do you have the hardest time owning? What's that truth that you have the hardest, that you struggle with the most? Once you deal with that, everything will unlock. See, a lot of the things that are not happening in your life right now, they're value locked doors. Until you understand your value, the doors cannot unlock. Value locked doors. Do you understand this? Come on. So I tell this insurance company before I can say no, it comes out, yes, I'll take it. And I regretted it as soon as I said it. It's like, oh my God. Does anybody remember the first time they said yes in their calling? The very first time. The very, very first. That was my, yes, I'll take it. That was the moment, man. They say you always remember your first. That was my first. See, and before I could back out, they had already sent over the deposit. And it was good money because they were an insurance company, right? I told you it was an insurance company, so the money was good. And I couldn't back out. See, sometimes you need to back. Here's a story to that, though. Sometimes you need to back yourself in a corner where you can't back out. Remember this now. Your success potential is always equivalent to the level that you're willing to be uneasy. How uneasy are you willing to be? Right? Let me tell you, there's nothing sexier, more attractive, more charismatic than somebody who is at peace with themselves. Right? It's not the makeup. It's not the watches or the chains or the shoes, the designer bags. It's how much do you love you? That makes you sexy. So I go to Atlanta, and I'm like, trusting God with every mile that I'm driving. I'm in Orlando. This is the first time that I'm speaking outside of my little 15 people at church. We had a men's group at church that I had originally started speaking at. And they all knew me, so I felt comfortable there, right? But this is the first time I'm going to speak in front of strangers. So I'm on the way to Atlanta, and I'm asking God, Lord, help me, help me, help me, help me. I'm nervous, I'm scared. Not about speaking. People say you're scared of speaking. No, I was scared of rejection. Is it the speaking you're scared of or the rejection, right? That's what we're really worried about. So I go up there with a friend to this event. It's a 2-day event. I'm speaking the last day. I'm closing the doors and shutting the lights off. I'm the last one to speak. So I go in on Friday to the event. Now, mind you, they had never seen a picture of me. Right? They had never seen what I look like. So I'm like thinking, how are they going to go with this? And, you know. So I want to go on Friday. I am not going to lie. I want to go on Friday just to make sure I'm okay. Like, you know, and I get over there on Friday, me and my friend, we come in, and of course, we're not dressed like everyone else, and they're all kind of like, y'all, the wrong place. The rap club's down the street. You know, like, they were looking at me like, you know, security was like, can I help you, sir? Yeah, I'm the keynote speaker. Exactly. And stop lying. You and your friend get out of here. You know what I mean? I remember going home that day to the hotel, and I'm like telling my friend Joe, I was like, man, I don't know how this is going down. I was nervous. I was like, not about the speaking. Because I knew at this point in time, I'm Jim, and I'd already bought into the voice inside. That's God. That's not Billy. So the message I knew he was going to take care of. All of that I knew, but I just still wasn't sure God hadn't messed up the package. So the next day, I go to the hotel where they're having the event, and this is pre-COVID. There's 1,000 people from one wall to the other, seat to seat, all suited up, front all the way to the back. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I tell you, Lord? Why did I have to promise that I was going to do this? And I remember sitting in the back with the sound guy, right? I'm sitting in the back of the place, and everybody's looking this way. And I'm, man, all the way up to the time I'm going on, I got this mirror just smacking me in the head. And the mirror's looking at me like, you're not good enough. You're going to make a fool of you. All of this, right? And I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm talking to God. Lord, help me. Help me. Right before I go on, they have this world champion wrestler go up there, Ted DiBiase Jr., world wrestling champion. He's going to introduce me. So he comes up, and they got a big screen up there. And he says, before we bring Billy out, he said, we're going to put on one of his videos, right? And they put on that champion video that I had done when I was on the verge of quitting. And it comes on, I was born a champion, raised a champion. I got champion in my blood. And I'm in the back, and this time I'm firing myself up. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, like I'm like, yeah, I'm the champion. And then I'm like, oh, I got to go speak. Like the fear was still there. I was struggling, right? But I was sitting in the back thinking, at the time I did that, I was on the verge of giving up. And God has put me all the way right here. And I was scared, though, still. I'm like, Lord, I'm going to do this, but I don't know how. And God finally moved on my spirit. Right there on the back. Everybody's watching the video. And God moved on my spirit and was like, look, Billy, all you got to do is get to the stage. When you open your mouth, they'll see me. They won't see you. And I got fired up. I was like, okay, we can do that. Like when the spirit move on you, boy, you feel power. Like, yeah, sure, I can take over the world right now. I go, the one-man Rambo. Yes, sir. Then reality kicked in. Lord, how many steps is that to the stage that I got to take? How many is that? And I did it in my math. It was about 48 steps. I'm like, oh, my God. So the video goes off. They all stand up, applaud, right? They're looking this way. And, of course, I told you there was no pictures. They never seen me before. And I felt like Les was talking about last night, like walking in the arena. And I start walking. And I start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm good till I get about to 12. And when I get to 12, I get their peripheral of their eyes, and they all go like this to watch me walk up. And I don't know if it was me, the voices on the inside of my head, or that I could hear the voices inside their head, or what, or the enemy. But I could hear it was like, that don't look like Billy. He don't sound like I thought he was going to look. Like, who's that? And all the way to the stairs. Like, I'm like trying to hurry because I can hear everything that they're saying. Listen, I can hear it all. Sometimes it ain't good to be a prophet. You can hear everything. Right? I was like, Lord, why do you let me hear that? I get all the way to the stage, and I can hear him say, man, I told you that CEO of our company was too young. He done wasted this money. We could have had a different speaker. I told you to get Tony Robbins. Right? Like, you know? But I get up to the stage, and I promise you could hear a pin drop. And I could almost see, like, disappointment. Or at least this is me, like what's on the inside, the way I'm seeing, the perception was, here I am, and I'm a disappointment to them. But at this point in time, I'm all in. I'm on stage now. Like, I made it. I did what God said I had to do. It's up to him now. It's on you now, Lord. I'm here. All you got to do is show up on stage. God will take care of the rest of that. Are you bold enough to take those steps? See, I had to be bold enough to say, okay, 48 steps. 1, Lord, 2, Lord, 3, Lord. And understand that when I get to that stage, God has got me, just like my little puppy. He said, I got you, just like little Bentley. He's got you too. I got up there on that mic that day. I sat there for about 10, 15 seconds in complete silence. And everybody looking around like, he done forgot his speech, right? Like, you know what I mean? He don't look like the person. He can't speak. He done forgot his speech. But I hadn't. I was getting peace at this point. Because every time you confront the fears that have been holding you back, you get stronger. With every step, although I felt fear, I was getting stronger with every step that I was bold enough to take. And I was qualifying. God was qualifying me with each step. Come on. Here's the question. Can God trust you with success? Can he trust you with that? But I get there on stage, and I sit real quiet for about 15, 20 seconds, right? And finally, I just yell out, God still moves. Real loud. And boy, it was like, phew. The light came on in me like the grill. You know, you turn the gas on, and you hit that. And the pins came out, and the session started. I rocked that thing for 2 hours. God was just doing this, right? And when I get done, and this is not to brag about me, this is to brag about God and what you can do. Because there's insecurities just like I had that you have, and I'm just showing you for that reason. This ain't about me. I'm just trying to give you an example so you can see yourself in my story, right? So at the end of this place that I didn't want to go because I thought I wasn't good enough, I had an hour and a half long line to buy my book. Listen to me. And this old man came up to me as I was signing books, and he was like, Billy, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. And I'm looking because I don't know the guy, and I'm like, you know, who's this guy? I'm telling my boy, is this guy crazy or what? Because, like, he's really bugging and annoying me. An older guy, and I'm like, what, you know? So finally I get up and I go over to him, and I was like, yeah, you know, how can I help you? Or whatever. He's like, man, I need you to forgive me. And I'm thinking, is this guy, right? Like, I don't know you. And I said, what do you mean, forgive you? He said, Billy, I'm ashamed to say it, but I judged you. He said, I saw the hat, I saw the gold teeth, I saw the look. He's like, what is this guy going to teach me? He said, but when you open your mouth, it was like God was speaking. And I said he was because I stayed at the back, right? I was at the back and I never left. Do you understand that? But no, here's the thing. The reason why I'm telling you this is God will always confirm that gifting and that calling that he'll never leave you. And what he told me in the back, once you open your mouth, they'll see me. This man confronted it and said the same thing. He confirmed it. He said it was like God was speaking when you open your mouth. And from that moment on, I said, Lord, wherever you send me to go speaking, I know you're going to do the speaking. I'm qualified because you qualify me. They might not like me, but you have called and ordained it, and I'm there. So I learned that lesson. But here's the thing. For 18 months and $400 and something thousand before I learned this lesson. And here's the real tragedy, not about the money. The real tragedy, and we've talked about it this whole weekend, is when you don't do your calling, you don't do your assignment, you don't do the thing you've been called to do, somebody's getting affected by you not doing it. You're here to help somebody, and if you're not there, they don't get that help. Now, how many arenas and rooms and ballrooms and all this stuff that I was not in because I was too scared to go, how many seats were out there with people in them waiting to hear hope, and I wasn't there to give it because I was too scared to do my thing? Here's the thing, the dream, the calling, the gifting is bigger than you. Do you understand that? If it was just about me or just about you, then we could justify never doing it. But if it's about others, we don't have that right. Right? We have to come and do what God has called us to do to help these people. Remember that the dream is bigger than you. Write this down. Where do I need to trust God more? Where do I need to trust my Creator more? Where do I need to trust the universe more? But the problem was not that I couldn't write a book. I didn't know the technique of how to write a book. I'm trying to write 11, 12 hours a day. That's not how you write a book. Now, the way I figured this out was a friend of mine sent me this email. The reason he sent the email had nothing to do with what I got out of it, what God was trying to convey. See, that's what God will do. He'll send somebody in your life, and they're coming for one reason, but it's really to answer what you've been missing, if you pay attention, right? Now, this person sent me an email, and it was an article about Stephen King, the writer, and the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, the movie, right? And they're on this book tour. And the guy from Game of Thrones in the article, he asked Stephen King, he said, you put out a brand new book every 3 months. How do you do it? He's like, it takes me 9 months to write a chapter, and you write 3 books in that amount of time, and it's quality work. You're not just putting books out, it's like quality work. How do you do it? He said, well, I simplify it. He says, I get up every day, 8 o'clock in the morning, sit at my typewriter, and my goal is to write 3 to 5 pages per day. And that's it. He's like, I don't critique it. I don't judge it. I don't beat it up if I don't like nothing. He said, that's not my job. My job is to sit there and write 3 to 5 pages, and then I'm done. He said, I do this. In a month's time, I got between 90 and 150 pages. In 3 months' time, I got 450 pages. The book is complete. Then I edit, crop what I don't like out. We manage it then. I don't do it on a daily basis. All my goal is to get up today on the day. Success is just a long list of todays done right. Somebody needs to hear that. Just get up and win today, right? So when I read that article, I knew exactly where I'd been going wrong. I'm trying to build Rome in a day when it wasn't built in a day. Trying to build an island in a day. It don't work that way, right? But every day, if you swim across the ocean here and put a tarp up and you do something every day to move toward the dream, you'll get there, right? So I set out and I said, I could write 5 pages a day. I can do 5. So I got back to the school board and I looked at it and I said, I got 200 pages to go, 5 pages a day divided by 240 days, I can have this book done. And I asked myself, am I committed and can I commit to 40 days of my life to write this book that I want to write? And I said, the answer to that, yes, I can commit. And I made a decision and forever my life has changed. Decisions ignite the explosion of change, right? Now, to remember the lesson that I learned, I put the quote right here at the front of the book so I never ever in my life would forget it. Success is a marathon of consistency walked out one day at a time. One day at a time. It's also, one day at a time is also the strategy in recovery for addicts and alcoholics. Just win today, right? And panic attacks too. Just win today, right? You get up every single day and say, what's one thing I can do today that will move me closer to my dream? Simple question that will change the trajectory of your life. I'm going to show you about perseverance. As I was doing the research, some stories popped out at me. There was this lady in South Korea named Miss Cha. She was trying to get a driver's license, right? And in her family, it was okay to fail, just not quit. It was disgraceful in the culture. It's okay to keep trying, it's okay to fail, but you better not quit. Don't disgrace the family. So she went across town every day, got up, paid money for the bus, rode to the driver's license office to take the written portion of the test, paid the money for that, failed it, paid the money for the bus back. She did this 949 times before she passed it. She failed 949 times. It took her almost 3 years, 5 days a week, right? Almost 3 years to pass her driver's license test. Now, what if she would have stopped on 943? Remember I said the devil doesn't know your number. What does it take to break you? What is your number? When are you going to quit? He's asking, right? Another story here with perseverance. Two authors, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, wrote a book called The Chicken Noodle Soup of the Soul. Maybe y'all know that book, right? When they got it finished, the first one, it's a series now, right? But the first book, when they got done with it, they sent it off to publishers to try to get a book deal. 144 book publishers said no. Now, this book series has sold 500 million copies, not dollars, copies, $20 a piece. We're talking about a $10 billion enterprise. Now, what if they would have stopped on 143? Rejection letter 143. What's your number? Right? How long can you keep hearing no and continue to pursue the dream? Another one, Howard Schultz, founder of Starbucks. He had this brilliant idea. I'm going to take coffee, which pretty much everybody gives away free or charges a quarter for. I'm going to put a little whipped cream in it and sugar in it, and I'm going to put it in a cup, and I'm going to charge $5 for it. People thought he was crazy. I'm going to start a franchise, just coffee, put it all over the world. He shopped the idea to angel investors for Starbucks. He got 214 rejections for funding. 214 before he got the yes. What if he stops at 230? What is your number? How many no's can you take? I'll give you two final stories here before I leave. I'm not the happy day, Ron Howard type of motivational speaker. I keep it real. Every day is not going to be rainbow and sunshine. Sometimes there's going to be some rain. Sometimes there's going to be some storms. Sometimes people are going to die right in front of you like me. Sometimes marriages ain't going to work out. Sometimes you're going to get laid off, fired. Sometimes you're not going to get the funding. Sometimes the dream's going to fall apart. Sometimes there's going to be a Category 5 hurricane hit your dream and run over it. But God will help you through it. The struggle is real, but so is the God that'll help you overcome it. Don't forget that. I was on this plane from Orlando to Denver to give a graduation speech to go talk to these kids in this program. And they asked me to speak on faith, like giving these kids faith. Like they had, the kids that were in this program had been expelled and kicked out of normal school for drugs and gangs and violence and stuff like that. And the world had basically thrown the key away and given up on them. But this program sowed life back in them and saw the potential in them. They, a lot of them just didn't have parents and stuff like that. And they needed to be in a program that would facilitate their greatness. And once they got in there, these kids bloomed. So they called me up and said, we've got kids that everyone else gave up on. They got into Harvard once they got in our program. They got into USC. They got into UCLA. They got into all the major tech schools. We want you to come here and tell them about faith, that we've given them the tools, but outside you're going to have to believe. Like it's not going to always look like things are going to happen, and you just got to keep believing. So I was going to speak on faith. Now, I'm on this plane ride, and I'm sitting in the aisle seat. There's nobody in the middle seat and a guy sitting in the window seat. Now, the seatbelt light is off, so everybody's up walking around the plane. Not a cloud in the sky, beautiful weather, 30-something thousand feet, and we are just cruising. But all of a sudden, just like I was saying in life, sometimes life will hit you upside the head when you least expect it, right? The pilot didn't see it. Nobody knew it was there, but we hit severe, massive turbulence in the air. I'm talking about this plane, we're all walking around like this, and all of a sudden it was just like final destination, Mayday, we going down. Like I'm talking about like violent stuff. The air oxygen machine came down, like everybody's freaking out. There was a lady walking down the aisle, literally, because the seatbelt light was on, and she rolled down the aisle, like rolled over my shoulder all the way down the aisle. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna die. And I'm sitting there with my Bible in my lap, going to speak about faith. And boy, I ain't got none right now. I'm like, Lord, you know what I mean? Like, what have you done? Like, up until this point, I used to hate flying. That was another reason I wasn't taking the calls when the bookings were coming, because I wasn't too fond of flying. But how you gonna reach 1 billion people if you're too scared to get in the plane, right? So I had to deal with the things that I was scared of. So here I am on this plane, and my faith is being tested. And the pilot is struggling for like 10, 15 minutes to get control of the plane. We're going down because he thinks like, if I get to a lower altitude, it'll stop. It doesn't work. He's like, well, if I go up, I'll get control. And we would just go all over the place, right? And everybody in that place is like, we're about to die. Like, you see the rosary beads out there in the praying, the Jewish people praying, the Muslim praying. Like, if you want to bring a community together, put them all on a plane and tell them it's going down. You'll see white, black, brown, yellow. Everybody comes together and say, amen, please help, right? Right? We're all equal. We gonna die, right? I'm looking around and everybody's chaotic, except this guy I'm sitting next to. This guy's like 35 years old, right? 40 years old. And he's looking out the window just like, man, he's just looking like this. And I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that came to my mind was like, that's not the right response. You know what I mean? To the psychological, right? Like, that ain't the right. And then, I had just watched that movie, like the 9/11 story or whatever, where the Let It Roll, where they ran in the cockpit and all that to save the plane from hitting DC or whatever. So the first thing went to my mind, I went to the movie like, is this guy a terrorist? Like my mind, because he's not acting the way everybody else is acting. Ooh, think about that. He's not acting the way everyone else is acting in the moment of crisis. This man is at peace. Peace seemed so foreign to me in that moment that I thought he had done something wrong, right? The only one that was in the right looked so wrong. Think about it. And here I am, I'm thinking about it. Here I am, big bad preacher, going to speak on faith, and this guy's showing me what it looked like. So, but I don't know that yet. I'm still thinking this is not the right response. So I'm trying to figure it out. So, I told you questions will take you wherever you want to go. So I'm asking this guy a question to see where we about to go, right? So I look over at him and I say, trying to probe him, I'm like, man, this is a crazy flight, ain't it? I asked a little question to see his response. I never forget, he looked over at me and he goes, real soft. He say, it's a little bumpy. I'm like, a little bumpy? You ain't see the lady roll down Go down the aisle? Like, what you mean? I started thinking I was in the Twilight Zone. Like, I'm on one plane, he on another plane. We overlapped in the dimensions. You know what I mean? Like, we going down and he's good. Like, because he's talking stuff like we not even on the same flight. Notice that. He wasn't speaking about the chaos and the trials and tribulations. He said, a little bumpy, like a little life, right? I said, what you mean a little bumpy? And his response is why I'm telling you the story. It was simple, but profound. I said, what you mean a little bumpy? And his response was this to me. He said, I don't get too worried about things like this because I know who's flying the plane. He said it plain as day. And this man wasn't ministering. I'm the minister. This man just gave the best sermon that I'd ever heard because I know who's flying the plane. Because he didn't tell me this sermon when things were going good up behind a pulpit. He was saying this sermon, man, in the middle of hell, turbulence, chaos of life. And he says, I know who's flying the plane. And I realized God had just taught me the lesson. And I looked up. It's one of those things. You ever winked at God? Like he winked back. I looked at him. I was like, I get it. Because I'm going to speak on faith. He showed me what it looked like. I look up at him and I say, I get it. And you know the craziest thing? The plane, as soon as I winked, it went, we were back to normal. So normal. Like when we landed, it was even exaggerated smoothness. It was like we landed on a pillow like a geezer. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't even know we landed, But see, there's a lesson in that too. Once you get the lesson in the season of struggle, once you understand the lesson, most of the time, the struggle will leave you then, right? As soon as you get it, the season is over. Do you understand that? And you can't qualify for the next level till you learn that lesson in the struggle. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is your calling is bigger than you. You've got to remember this. It's the one thing that you leave here with. Remember, the calling is bigger than you. There are other people, whether you know it or not, understand it or not, or can see it or not, there are people in the future that are going to be relying on you. God is going to use you in ways that you cannot imagine. The thing is bigger than you. Now, as I was getting out of the rap life, I still had CD stores. Y'all remember we used to have CDs? I had CD stores all through Orlando. And, I sold urban wear, the hats, all the stuff that come along with that lifestyle. And I was getting out of the rap business, but I hadn't replaced the financial aspect yet. Like all my money was coming in from the destructive life. My heart had changed. My mind had changed. I retired. But God hadn't shown me how I was going to make new money. Right? It was like the change met reality. I got bills, but I don't want to do that life no more. But I'm stuck. What do I do? I'm at that center point where I haven't got all the answers yet. So I'm waiting for the answers. But I'm making small steps of progress every single day. Now, at this point in time, I was a baby believer, right? A baby believer. Let me show you what I used to do. When people would come into my store, I began to pray for them. Remember Mom said, who you helped today? So if I couldn't help anybody money-wise, I would say a prayer for them. And I figured that was helping them too. Whether they knew it or not, I prayed for them. And I wasn't bold enough yet. Remember, I'm still Jim Morrison. I'm not bold enough yet to tell them that I'm praying for them, to own my God in front of them. I'm not brave enough yet. Because here I am, big bad rapper gangster, all this, and I'm going to go in there and tell people, hey, man, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking, they're not going to be cool with that. These dope boys and gangsters that I'm selling product to that are my main customers are not going to come in here if I'm talking about Jesus, right? So I would just do what we call ninja prayer. You ever ninja prayed before? You know what that is? It's like when somebody comes in, and I can't, let's say, for instance, Jeremy comes into my store and he's got his friend, and I can't tell Jeremy I'm praying for him because I'm embarrassed or he might think I'm crazy. So what I do is, when he's talking to him, I put on my ninja outfit and over here and listen, eavesdrop in on this conversation. so I could find out what I need to pray for. So he'd be like, man, boy, hope I don't get laid off, man. The money's tight. We about to be out on the street, and the wife is having a baby, and we don't know what we're going to do. Okay, Lord, I come over here now, and I say, Lord, I say a prayer. May all his needs be met according to your riches and glory by Christ Jesus. Lord, I pray that blessing on him, that all his stuff is met. That not only does he not get fired, I pray that he gets a promotion. I'd say it over here, but the thing is, he doesn't know I prayed for him. But I'm also not honoring my God, because if y'all remember back in my story, I said I cut a deal with God and said, when you heal me, I'll go out and tell him who did it. If I'm praying for him and God answers that prayer, he doesn't know it came from God because he didn't know I even prayed for him. So I'm out of alignment with my promise. But I'm a baby. So I'm moving step by step. So I am praying for him, right? I'm doing the right thing. I'm moving in that direction. And some of you are not ready for the full jump yet, but you're taking steps, right? So I think God kind of got frustrated because I kept doing that, and I wasn't going to be able to go to this level. If I can't pray in there in the store with one person, how am I going to talk to thousands? How am I going to be trusted with thousands, right? I got to win this battle at home in this situation with the gangsters, the people that won't listen. And if I can tell them, I can tell anybody, right? So I got to win it right here. So finally one day, I think God had had enough, and he was like, it's time to go do your thing. So I'm sitting at a red light one day, and this guy comes through the red light, turns, and I realize that's my best customer. The one that comes in religiously every week and spends money with me. He had a brand new car, brand new rims, paint, all that comes through the light, and God's spirit moved on me and said, they gonna get him. That's all I knew. The spirit just said that one thing in my spirit, they gonna get him, and I didn't know what that even meant. What do you mean they? Who's they? And what are they going to get? I didn't know. But it was like God said, go tell them they're going to get them. And I'm thinking, part of me saying, have I lost my mind? Because I'm in panic attacks, right? Like, is that really you, God? Like, see, he's beginning the relationship, beginning to use me, but I'm not really sure. Like, Lord, would you really talk to me? Right? Like, we think, would God really use me? So, but I knew I had this message to give this guy. Now, this guy that I'm talking about was the #1 dope dealer in the city. And he came with an entourage. Every Friday, he would come into my store with about 10, 15 people, and he bought them all whatever they wanted. Like literally, he'd come in, and I'd have all my new CDs out on the table for, new artists, Jay-Z, Kanye, whoever came out. I had it all out here, had new shirts, hats, all that. And we had this arrangement, because he would say, look, man, I don't window shop. When I come in, you better have the bag out ready for me. Like, don't disrespect me by not having the bag out. Right? Like, we had this little thing. So I had to have the bag out ready, like, because I'm finna make some money. And I'm the one that always deals with him. So he comes in with the entourage that day, and I got a message to tell him. And I'm excited at first. I'm like, yeah, I got to tell him. God's going to use me. Right? So he comes in like he always does, and he's like, the table's here, and he's like, what's new? And I'm pointing it out. He just nod. That means put it in the bag. He don't even say, yeah. And I just put it in the bag, right? Yep. And then all the friends, what they want, I'd put the stuff in the bag. And I have this message to give, but don't know how to give it. How do I tell this man, you know what, bro? God told me the other day when you went through the light that they was going to get you. Like, and I don't even know what they going to get, and I'm going to tell this man, right? And I'm thinking, like, he's going to think I'm crazy, and he's not going to come in my store no more. My money's going to be affected, right? So I'm weighing like financial responsibility over this. I'm like, all this stuff is tied to this. But I feel like, no, God is giving me a message. So I did what we do. I looked for the perfect moment to tell him. Y'all ever look for the perfect moment to do something? Put it off just till the perfect moment come. So I'm putting stuff in the bag, and I'm thinking, yeah, perfect moment's going to come. Perfect moment's going. I'm putting stuff in, cutting stuff in, putting stuff in, putting stuff in. That perfect moment doesn't ever come. I grab the bag, hand in the bag, and when he leaves, I dap him, right? Pound me, boom, and he goes out the door. And I'm like, oh, I didn't tell him, and I'm mad at myself, I'm mad at God. I'm like, Lord, you didn't tell me how to tell him. He's going to think I'm crazy. I'm making excuses, right? And then I let it go. And next week, like clockwork, comes through the door on Friday with the entourage. He comes, woo, Lord, we got that second chance. I'm going to tell him this time. Right? He comes through the door. So I get the bag out, and I'm like, okay, Lord, perfect time. I'm going to find that perfect moment. Stuff in the bag. That perfect moment. It's going to come. It's going to come. It's going to come. Hand in the bag. He goes out the door. Oh! Can I just ninja prayer for him, Lord? Can we just do that? I'm not ready for that, Lord. Next week, comes back through the door. I'm like, Peter, 3 times you're going to deny me, right? This is what I felt like. He comes through the door again, and I'm like, 3 times a charm. We're going to get this, Lord. Big, bad prayer warrior I am, right? I'm going to tell him, Lord. He comes in. I'm still looking for the perfect moment. Putting the stuff in the bag. Perfect moment, perfect moment, perfect moment, perfect moment. Don't ever come. Walks out the door. Now I'm really, really mad at myself. So I come back to God and I'm making excuses. You ever made excuses to God why you didn't do something? I say, well, Lord, if they was going to get him, they would have already got him. Right? You know, I'm using something to make an excuse up. The sad thing was this guy, though, never came back in my store again. Let me tell you the story. So it's much more comfortable for me to go back to what is comfortable, to go back to ninja prayer. So he doesn't ever come back in. And I'm still doing my comfortable. How many of y'all still doing comfortable? I'm doing the comfortable thing. They come in, I'm praying. One day this guy comes in and he's got tears in his eyes. And I see him and I'm like I got a son, I could pray for that dude, you know? And I could call mama because I could tell her I helped. So I come over to him and I'm trying to gauge him. I'm like, bro, you all right? You look like you going through something. And he's like, man, going through it. It's like, you know, life, man, it's crazy. I'm like, what's happening? Because I got to know what to pray for, right? So what happened? He's like, oh, man, my brother got killed and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, who's your brother? And he mentions his real name. And I had never heard the guy's name before. Because everybody I dealt with, we dealt with street names, like nicknames, right? So when he said the real name, I was like, I don't know him, man. Sorry to hear that, you know? He's like, you know him? I'm like, I don't think I know who you're talking about. He said, he come in all the time buying CDs from you, man. He been coming here for years. He said, you know he look like this? And I said, I don't place him. And he turns to his girlfriend and he says, go to the car and get the T-shirt that we wore to the funeral with my brother's picture on it so Billy can see who it is. So she comes back through that door, holds up that T-shirt, and guess who's on the T-shirt? It's the one I was supposed to give the message to. They gonna get him. And I about dropped. I'm like, because now, like I'd already, look, see, I got the goosebumps. It's real. What I'm telling you is real. This really happened. Tears hit my eyes. Look, man, I'm getting them right now, bro. Like, tears was coming on my eyes, and I knew I had failed, and there was no way to fix it. And I had no idea this is what was going to happen. I thought, like, get him, like, you know what I mean? Like, what was it, steal his rims? Or, like, I didn't know what they were talking about. Like, I didn't know they meant kill him. And I said, what happened? He said, we don't know. My brother was at the gas station pumping gas, and 2 guys ran up on him with masks on and said, we got you. That was all they heard on the camera was them say, we got you. And God had told me, and that at that red light, tell them they going to get him. Plural. Exactly the way God had told me was exactly what that man repeated back to me. And I realized I had failed in doing what I was supposed to do. And my failure caused somebody else's life. Your calling is bigger than you. You got to remember that. I went back to God right then, and tears and all, because I knew I couldn't fix that. And I said, Lord, I am sorry that I failed you. But this will never, ever, ever happen to me again. I promise you. If you tell me something, I don't care whether it's status quo, politically correct, sounds good, looks good. I don't care who I offend. If you give me a message, I will go say it. But see, I learned it the hard way. I learned it the hard way. You don't have to go through that. Your calling is bigger than you. Your calling is bigger than you. Who's ready to commit to doing their calling and whatever it takes to be that person you were designed by God to be. Who's ready? Come on, commit. You ready? All right. Well, I love you, and I thank y'all for giving me this opportunity to speak to y'all. In 2022, remember this, 2022.